Welcome to part 2, Steinberg sessions with us, the Wideboys. With a little bit of luck, we're going to make our way through a lovely tune.
Yeah, we're on the South Coast today in one of our studios, and we're going to talk you through our new single called Everybody Sing with ourselves, Errol Reid and Luck and Neat.
Boom ting.
Ring ding 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 with the ball, ring ding ding dong. Yes, we're coming on and yes, we're coming on strong. Ring ding 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 with the ball, ring ding ding dong. Ooh, could have nice to the dong, could have DJ long, DJ long.
So that was Rat Pack. Now we're going to talk you through a wicked collaboration we did with DJ Luck and MC Neat. Errol Reid on vocals, and it's actually using an old sample from Knee Deep, a track by Parliament, which is an old funk track that's been used by other people in the past, so a very recognisable sample. And we actually recreated that sample, so we replayed the sample, so it didn't use any of the original Knee Deep song.
I just playing it in the background while you're talking about it, yeah?
The reason we did that is because when you come to sample clearance and publishing and things like that, there's different things that you need to know, and when you use actually somebody else's music without replaying it, you have a lot more people to involve. There's different processes rather than doing a cover version, so that is why we did actually replay it.
Normally you'd have to pay what's called master's clearance to whichever label released that track to start with in the first place, and that can be very expensive, especially like if you're having to license from America like we would have had to do, and we've done in the past. So it is possible to do all of these things, but if you can recreate the parts, in fact I think there are special companies and teams dedicated to recreating parts for you, so that you do get around the master's clearance, but you always have to get publishing clearance and copyright clearance from the original writers.
And yeah, one case we spent over a year clearing one sample, which we wouldn't have had to done had we done this process. So this is something we've learned over the time. So we're going to talk you through it. The good thing about this track is we're using quite a few different techniques from the last track. So should we talk you through some of how we recreated the sample and some of the effects on that?
Absolutely. So the first thing that we did, which was really key, was this lead synth. I'm just going to quickly play it. I'll play a bit of piano backing as well with it. So basically we played the original track, got the keyboard up and just looked at just copying those notes and having a really good ear. That's where a bit of keyboard playing definitely comes in handy, so always keep practicing that. And what we noticed with the original vinyl was that this synth had two distinct doubles. One had been played very loosely and put in the left speaker, and one had been played very loosely and put in the right speaker. So what I did is I just grabbed a quick sawtooth wave, just using like a basic old school emulation. This is called Retrolog. It all comes part of the Steinberg plugins, all part of the as the DAW, and it's just basically a sawtooth. But the great thing about it is the way that you modulate it, and you use a bit of pitch bend and the modulation wheel to add bend as well. So that's just and you can see there, that's the pitch bend information, so the notes kind of glide up. So the notes glide into it, and then you use vibrato as well. I should play it really, shouldn't I? We haven't played it for a little while. So we're recording pitch bend and modulation there.
And it's those details, it's that spice that we were talking about earlier that just takes it off from being flat and it really gives an interest to the ear.
So we played that kind of loose, and then I was looping it over and over, so I had plenty of MIDI left over, and which was played slightly differently. Not quite exactly the same. You can see here, if I just really zoom in on the notes there, we haven't quantized it, we've left it very loose. That was really important for most of these recreation parts, because back in the day they would have been recording live to tape. They wouldn't have been able to quantize, they wouldn't be using MIDI sequencers, they'd just be playing it live. So it was really important that we captured that. So apart from like the down notes, we probably left everything else unquantized. and panned. This was a really cool little technique. We panned one totally to the left speaker, the other one to the right speaker, and because they're a bit loose and they're played slightly differently, all it needed was a bit of delay on it. We grouped those up. I'll just show you how we did that. Quite simple, really. So we've got 2 copies of the same synth, grouped up left and right on a group, and put a delay across it. And that was pretty much it to recreate that part. Then we, again, just using our ears, we got up quite a normal sounding piano, and I think for that one we just used one of the library grand pianos out of Contact, which comes as part of their library. We've got complete, what have we got? Complete 10 Ultimate, so I think it's in with that. With a lot of these parts and a lot of funk, you'll find, and certainly it's the approach that Ed and I like to take, is we like to play lots of very, very simple parts, perhaps not having them layered, but having them playing at separate times to get them to gel together. A process we call talking and answering. And then we just grabbed one of our favourite, which is a Rhodes plugin. This is EVP73. I think it comes as part of the Logic package, but there's a PC version which we love, which is a great Rhodes emulator. Again, just listening with our ears to the original, and just copying what we were hearing on the vinyl, really. It's not the biggest part in the world, but it all adds up. And then Errol did just a fantastic vocal, copying from the original.
And we used a lot of the similar processes we spoke about before on that vocal. As you see, that's been exported and blocked out from the main comping session.
So there's our Errol vocal. We used a gate, standard business, a de-esser, quite a lot of tape saturation, a bit of EQ. Just a little bit of transparent compression on that, and just a little limiter on the end.
One thing you can do in Cubase, which is actually useful and good for streamlining, once you find an effects chain that you like, save it down. So you just use that little thing, save effects chain, call it whatever you want, vocal, Errol vocal processing, and then it's just really easy. Save you loading up each plugin every time you do it, changing the sessions, and it's a good starting point. So you next vocal track you do, you can try that, or have, you know, in your arsenal 10 things. It might just save you 10 minutes, 15 minutes of creative time if you've got that saved.
So yeah, also on that vocal there, we just use just a standard Vox effects send there, reverb, delay. We didn't use our sidechain compressor to actually get in the vocal to sidechain itself, but we did use a kick sidechain compressor on there, just on the vocal return, the effects return. And then
Sing. Everybody sing.
so what we've got is we've actually grouped up the lead vocals and the backing vocals. The leads we've actually got separate on a separate group with their own processing as well.
All the girls sing.
And then we had Neat come and do some verses I don't think we had the guys do it all on the one day, did we? It was all recorded in separate sessions.
Yeah, separate sessions.
Let's just have a little listen. So we've got some neat ad-libs over the top.
Girls sing,
I know the girls sing,
all the guys sing,
all the guys sing.
everybody sing.
This was recorded on the Neumann U87 as well.
And just what we've got there, which is a really cool little calling and answering technique, or talking and answering. We've got Errol singing and Neat
All
doing
the
an ad-lib.
girls sing,
I know the girls sing,
all the guys sing,
all the guys sing.
everybody sing.
So we've just got a nice little bit of talking and answering, one copying the other.
Yep.
And so Neat's got his own very similar channel settings that we used before, but probably just tweak those up a bit, and just he's got his own fader with all those effects on, not too much delays and reverbs and stuff. Quite simple on the vocals, this one, in terms of production. One of the really cool things that we love to use is vocoders. I won't go into too much detail about how to use them, but basically you need an original vocal sound, and then you need what's called a carrier. And a vocoder stands for vocal encoder and decoder, and they were developed in the war to send encoded signals and messages to people. So you'd need your original vocal and this carrier, and only if you had a copy of the carrier on the receiver could you decode that vocal. And so it was a way in the war to send encoded messages to each other.
We use it differently.
We use it for peace, peace, not war. So, and it just creates this fantastic like harmonic sound.
Yeah, one of the vocoders we love to use is within Reactor, and it's got some really nice sounding, classic sounding, and we actually use the Reactor vocoder setting.
Languages,
Yeah, it's in Razor.
Yeah, it's within Razor,
music,
within the vocoder settings.
And it's called Bread and Razor vocoder, so it's just like an old school one.
So what you do is you'd add the Reactor as an insert plugin on your vocoder chain. Sorry, on your vocal. Within your vocal on the mixer, you'd add a Reactor as an insert, and it's actually the Reactor 5 effects. We'd load up our.
So then what it allows you to do is then play the vocal. I'll be a bit blocked out there. Play the vocal up and down the keyboard. And that's how we get that vocoder sound. There's different ways of doing it these days.
And it's really cool for also generating harmonies and also, yeah, just thickening up as a backing for some of your vocal leads.
And then on this, it was kind of pretty standard two-step drums on this track. Again, with a swing quantize. One of the distinctive things about the original track was this kind of drum fill. And we just automated a bit of reverb on that snare and bounced it down as audio. So we took
I was just using the Freeverb VST, that one.
And then just going into some of these drums, for instance, if we look at the hi-hats and just zoom in on those, there's a little bit of detail there. And we are using, I think, it might be 100% swing on that one.
Yeah.
So we're using 100% shuffle on these drums. I'll just show you the difference without the shuffle. So that's perfectly straight and equal quantize. And this is with full swing. And we did that for pretty much most of the parts. just again, just having a look at some of the snares and some of the EQ settings.
Sometimes it's good, just experiment with quantization. Take your whole tune, either save it down as a different name and just try swinging it. Try applying some different swings. You can get a completely different feel. And also try mixing some. Sometimes you want it to be messy. Like, you know, back in the day, you didn't have as many quantizing templates. So you just chuck on some swung beats, some straight beats, and it would give it a vibe, it would give it a groove. So try different things with that, be experimental.
Yeah, a really good way to look at that is the thinner the element, the more you can swing it. So if you've got a shaker or a hi-hat, you can put quite a lot of swing on that. If it's a bigger element like a bass or a piano, then try less and less swing. So you can vary it, you can mix it up. So just very quickly, just looking at the drums, we just did our standard thing of just cleaning up the EQ, just rolling off a bit at the bottom, rolling off a bit at the top, and then just adding a little bit of colour or just punch where that snare drum is. Because it's garage, because we haven't got a fall to the floor kick and the snares aren't landing on top of the kick drum, the snare is playing by itself next to the kick, so it can carry quite a lot of weight, a bit like it would with drum and bass.
And you can use the side chains on the snares as well. It doesn't have to be just on kicks, that can be really useful.
Yeah, using the snare to trigger.
Okay, so just to talk you through the bass and how we did it, very similar to the last track, but we'll just run through it. So we've got a few different sounds. We've got a main donk-esque bass.
Oops, hello.
And to give that a little bit of extra spice, we sampled that and reversed it within Contact and used that just to give it a little bit of, so it's not just the straight notes, it helps groove into it. So we EQ'd the sub out of that, and we actually, on this particular tune, rather than, we wanted slightly different settings, so rather than grouping the sub element, which we use on from a separate synth, and the donk, we used a compressor and track spacer on both being triggered by the kick, which just enabled us to give slightly different settings. So I think the donk we maybe tweaked using track spacer at one EQ, and then
so we
sub on a different.
So we routed our kick drum, the sound of our kick drum, into our track spacer plugin, which is sitting over our sub. And what that does is it dynamically removes some of the frequencies of the kick from our sub bass, and it does that by sending the kick to the sidechain input of the track spacer plugin. And we did the same with like the donk bass as well.
Very minimal sidechain setting there as well.
And then on the sub, we cleaned away any unwanted top. There's no top there at all, so we just used. So kind of the different types of EQ you can use can have different slopes. So I tend to use a similar slope to what you can actually see. So there, for instance, if I'd have chose a 36 decibel per octave filter, it doesn't quite cover the slope of the bass that I'm trying to get rid of. So I just use a slightly more shallow slope there. And you just want to get rid of, there's no top in sub bass, and sometimes it's very, very clicky as well. So getting rid of pretty much most of the top on the sub bass really helps out.
Sometimes as well we'll shape the envelope of the attack as well, just to have it slightly slower, so that it allows the kick to just hammer in. But so that's another way of giving it a bit more room. If the sub and the kick are really, really clashing and you're struggling, just change the attack envelope. So basically the sub is starting slightly, the main sound of it is slightly after the kick. It can help give you a little bit of extra room if you're really struggling.
The other one as well, I mean, we haven't got it in here because we programmed the notes quite meticulously, but making sure that your basses are in mono as well, so they're not clashing or there's no overlap as well, keeps it nice and clean. Just the overall vibe of the track and things that we did, like the vocoder and stuff like that. We just, there's a couple of things. One is taking the track and bouncing it as a whole, and then just using filter as an insert with some automation.
And if you were to do this, wait till you're happy with the track. Have it in mind that you're going to do it, but if you're going to bounce it, obviously you want the mix down to be sort of pretty similar throughout the track. So this is one of the final stages we would do in terms of that.
And it's really cool because sometimes if a track's not got enough and you start adding layers and new instruments, it can sometimes clutter up the mix. It's really good using what you've done already and doing something fresh to it. And that's one of the things that we work by, like grabbing a bit of vocal and looping it and making a rhythm out of it, using parts that you've created, your unique parts.
Well, we did that with the scratch synth actually as well, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. I can't remember how we did it, but we took the synth, and I think we probably put a little scratch plug in, or like effects tricks or something.
And it panned it.
And we took the synth and probably cut it up into pieces, no doubt, somewhere. There it is. So we did some reverses to emulate like scratching it.
Back in the day, do you remember that? Do you remember that synth we used with the DJ? That there wasn't a way to do that back in the day. Well, was that a Roland? It was a Roland DJ synth.
Yeah, that's right.
And the only way to actually reverse the track to make it sound like a spin back was to use this very specific old Roland DJ synth.
What we would do now to get a scratch effect is we would bounce a part of the track out and give it to Ed on the DJ mixers, and he would actually scratch the track live back in on itself, which is a really handy little trick. And then last but not least, we wanted like a really nice a party vibe for the track. So what we did is we recorded ourselves like having a bit of a party, and just like did this vocal rise, which is Ed and I. And I think we've got a party crowd in here somewhere. I don't think we did that one, but we have been known to create our own party crowd. So it's quite a simple track really, but just some really nice elements, and also the fact that we've kind of used part of another old track and incorporated that and remixed it almost. Gives it that nice little fresh sound, and that's pretty much the track there.
So with mastering, there are loads of different ways to do it. You need to experiment basically. Sometimes with us, we'll do our own mastering. Other times we will send off to a mastering engineer, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. What will help will be choosing the correct sounds in the first place, having space actually in your mix, and having
that's a big point.
A master is not going to polish you know what. it will help, and you'll be able to get louder sounds, but if you choose the instruments right from the first kick drum and the bass sounds, that's where you're going to really have the benefits of a good master. Every track is different. One mastering setting for one track is not necessarily going to be great for another track, and depending on what style of music it is also going to depend on how severe the settings of the mastering you're going to have. So Jim's going to talk a little bit about how we do our mastering, and we do it as a separate project, completely differently from our arrangement file. So generally we'll have 3 different projects. We'll have the writing and recording, which we did the first session where we're actually vibes in out and recording the vocal. Then we'll have our techie type production, where once we bounce the vocals and any other parts that might have complex lanes or a lot of parts, so we'll streamline that again. And then this will be the 3rd part, where we will do just specifically mastering and tweaking the final product.
So from the previous session, we just bounced it out as a 24-bit WAV. It's quite important to use quite a high bit depth pre-mastering, just in case there's some low levels in the pre-master. And as you can see from our track, where we've spent a bit of detail on the original track, it's all pretty much level. So the mastering process isn't a fix. It's adding, and it's just going to polish it up nicely. But we're not depending on our mastering to make it sound nice. We've done the legwork, as Ed was saying. So in the mastering chain, we'll just pop it on a channel, and then the first part of the mastering chain that we'll do.
Girls, guys, to feel the vibe.
I'll just switch everything off for now. So we've just kind of built up this mastering chain over the years.
That's right, let me reach for the sky.
The first thing we'll do is use a tiny little bit of compression with attack and release. Sometimes you get the odd pop and click. It's almost acting like a pre-limiter, but it's just taking care of any nasty pops or clicks that we catch.
I like how we got.
So that's the first part of the process. Then we'll take something to add a little bit of warmth. In this case, we're just going to use an SSL, like channel strip compressor.
Got to ride, you feel like you start to like.
Again,
make sure.
it's literally ducking like 1 or 2 dB, very, very subtle, and we're just adding a little bit of colour that comes from this compressor. Then we're going to add a little bit of tape saturation with a PSP. I know Skrillex absolutely loves these and puts them on a lot of his channels.
You work that, heard that neat chat, white boys like to sit back, income original P-Funk sounds, and we can't down.
So we're just going to be using a little bit of tape saturation on that, just to kind of warm it up, but very, very delicate, hardly any at all, really.
So again, it's like the vocals, it's lots of little stages, lots of chipping away to get the end result.
And then we'll use like a multiband compressor. And what this does is it takes the whole track, breaks it up into frequency bands, and compresses those bands individually, and then glues them back together again. And you've got control over where those frequency bands are and how much compression you have on each of those. But we don't go crazy, you know, just small. And then we'll just pop a nice little bit of shaping EQ. On this one we had a little bit of a boost of 100. Very important that we rolled off anything below 30, and anything too high gets rolled off as well. Back in the days of vinyl, there was, you know, you had to roll that right down because you were limited to how many frequencies you could get on vinyl. And in the digital age, it's a little bit more forgiving, but really, do you really want frequencies in there that the human ear can't hear? So we just cater for those. And then just add a little bit of smile EQ as well. Not anything too crazy, but just to have a nice little shine to the track and add a bit of bass. And then because of that EQ, that you might have boosted some bits or lost some bits. Just have a very, very mild bit of compression, just transparent compression. And then after that, we use this fantastic Brainworks mid and side EQ. So what this does is we use it to brighten up the very fast stereo image in the speakers, and we use it to actually dull the mono image in the middle. And what that does is it creates a nice little stereo effect. And the other thing that we'll do is mono everything below 240 hertz, just so that both speakers are handling the bass equally. The last thing you want is a bit of bass pan to your left, because you want all the weight, both speakers carrying all the weight. And then we just send it over to a series of limiters that we'll choose which one is best for our program material. In this case, I think we're using FabFilter Pro L limiter, and this is where you get your huge slam. And really, you want the track to average anywhere between -10, -8 dB, might be pushing it a little bit far, but that's where you get your average volume from your track. And when you're having a mix with another track, and I don't want to get into the whole volume wars debate, This is where your track will jump out compared to another, or it might sound low compared to another if you don't go through this process.
So there's no right or wrong way to do this, and you should really, really experiment. One of the best tracks that we ever did, we broke all the rules, and it was when we were using an old Mackie desk.
Yeah.
It was a 32-channel Mackie desk, and everyone was like, keep out the reds, keep out the reds, don't turn it on the reds. So we just experimented. We were seeing what we could do to create a different sound. So we ended up pushing it to the places that everyone said don't go to. And it was actually one of our favourite and best and most rawest tracks. So
yeah, we took the kick, put it on one channel, and cranked the gain right up till it distorted. And we thought that sounds pretty good. The snare's going to have that as well, and then the bass had it as well.
Yeah.
And it just this tune just exploded out of the speakers, and it was just one of our best ones.
So definitely, you know, go forward from this. Take this as you know, and we're not saying this is the right way to do it. Try it yourself, but this is the way that we've been doing it and have been getting good results.
Another last little trick that we use for mastering as well, which we actually spotted when we were doing some, we did a remix of some pop production, and when we looked at the waveform, we seen that they'd done this trick, so we've started to adapt it. So the problem is with the loudness wars is it tends to kill all the dynamics of your track. So if I put the mastered version of this track up on the screen, it's absolutely, everything's been smashed to pieces and you've lost all your volume changes and your dynamics. The problem with that is if you have a breakdown and you want the track to kick in, it's not going to kick in as much because the limiter is just making everything level. So what we do is we manually adjust the volume of the master.
Using automation.
Using automation. So this is post limiter. So this is the last of the processes. So very gradually over 8 bars, the breakdown will turn down the master using some automation. This is exaggerated. So then you make sure that the master fader jumps back up just as the track kicks in. But obviously we're just going to use that subtly. So we're just going to have it turned down perhaps 1.5 dB. So it's going to ramp down just before it kicks in. And then the master volume pops back up when the track kicks in. And you do that after your limiter. So that's the very final stage. So now you've regained control back of your dynamics for your whole track. And you can use that for your breakdowns to get the track to really slam in when it kicks in. Thanks ever so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed our tutorials and definitely took away some secrets today from behind the scenes in our studio. And I hope you go and enjoy our single and our new album that's coming out soon.
If you want to keep up to date with everything Wide, follow us on Twitter at the Wideboys and on Facebook, facebook.com/Wideboys, or just look us up online, Google us. We are constantly learning from tutorials, so if you've enjoyed it, give us a hashtag, show us a sign. Let us know that you've listened, if there's anything you'd like to know more about, and keep it real on the Cubase sessions.